Hey y'all, it's Maritime in America again, a podcast where we're charting America's offshore stories. It's the only podcast that highlights mariners' perspectives on issues facing the offshore community and the greater U.S. maritime community. I'm your host, Aaron Smith of the Offshore Marine Service Association. Each Friday, I'll bring you the Offshore Briefing, a quick rundown of the week's notable developments, updates, and news you need to know in the offshore space. In addition, we'll feature a special guest from the maritime world, bringing a mariner's voice and real-world perspectives straight to the show. Joining me are my co-hosts, Ashley and Angel, where we'll strengthen the maritime American mariner's voice by diving into the people, policies, and powerful currents shaping the U.S. maritime community. Whether you're on deck or at your desk, we're glad you're here. All right. Welcome everyone to Maritime in America. We have a great podcast for everyone today. I'm really excited about it. I think this is going to be another great episode, getting to interview another great mariner. But before we introduce our special guest, I want to introduce my co-host. With me, as always, are Ashley Smith and Angel Johnson. How y'all doing?
Just great on this dreary day.
Yes.
Doing good. Unlike the weather.
Yeah. Well, we'll all have to be out in it later this afternoon too. So that's going to be great. But with us today, we also have Captain Justin Taylor. And this is someone I've been wanting to have on the podcast for a while, and I'm really excited about it. Got some great stories from the wheelhouse, from the deck level. And so, Captain Justin, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you give us a short introduction of yourself?
Captain Justin Taylor. I'm 200 gross ton master near coastal. Got to get used to saying that. I was a 100-ton captain for so long, and I just did the 200 ton upgrade a few months ago. Been at Odyssey Marine all my life. I'm just gonna say that because it's too long to count. I tell everybody I'm like the freckle everybody has. You can't get rid of it unless you go to the doctor. So yeah, I mean, just going through the upgrade, spending my life, and
that's
trying
exciting.
To do the best
Congrats.
Thank you.
And that is, yes,
Yeah.
Congratulations, and that is great. What boat are you on?
Well, I was on the Odyssey Defender. I was on there since 2016. Right now I'm just boat hopping, getting experience on the larger vessels, mainly operating as a DPO. So yeah, I don't really have a home right now. That's okay though, because I'm getting to meet more people in the company, more of the deck crews, engineers, captains, and I'm really enjoying that aspect of it.
Well, we were with David and John last night, and they were
Yeah.
super excited that you're going to be on today.
Yes.
Yeah, I've known both of them a
maybe-
long time.
And I told them we're going to talk about them. Good, bad, TBD. And they were okay with it. But actually, there's nothing bad to say about either one of those guys. So clearly I'm joking. Literally can't say one bad thing.
I got some funny stories about David, but I'm not going to really go into that.
He makes me laugh. I love Dave Daunton.
Yeah, he's a great guy,
leaders.
and I've always had a great working relationship with him, even before he became the
I
president.
invited myself to dinner with him last night.
That is right. And so, Justin, you are a hoss piper.
Yep.
You started on deck. Tell us that story. How'd you find your way to the industry?
Okay, so it's a little bit different for me because I started when I was 17. When I walked on my first OSV, 17 years old. It was a Seahorse Marine Phillip Plaisant on the boats at that time.
Oh wow!
Yeah, the
Nice.
first.
That's going back.
Yeah, so it would have been. Oh gosh,
I don't even know this
2000. So I got emancipated from my parents so I could legally work offshore. It wasn't my parents helped me do it. So, yeah. So long story
I was going to wonder
short,
because you have to be 18 to
right.
get a credential, but I didn't know
back
that. So,
then,
but if you
credentialing
emancipate
wasn't
yourself,
the
you
same.
can get a credential.
No, so 100-ton vessels, you don't really need an OS. So most of the time, the only credentialed people is the captain. So, and back then it was totally different. You didn't require anything but a pair of work boots, a hard hat, some work clothes, and you just walk on the boat. Essentially, that's all you got. All your training was on board from senior crew members or captains. So I had experience in the commercial fishing industry, shrimp boats,
Okay.
gill net boats, oyster boats, crab boats, whatever fishing there is, I've done it. So I wasn't totally green, but I was green to the offshore industry, which is totally different environment from commercial fishing. So I started there, and then Philip sold out to Secor, and then I
Mm-hmm.
worked for Secor a little while, then I left, and I worked on land, and then I got hired in at AMT, which my father, my uncle, and my cousin all got hired in. So it was just a family boat, which is a weird
Oh,
dynamic.
fun. I love that.
That
Some
is
would
a
argue otherwise.
I bet. Who was the head guy on the boat though?
So at that time it was my Uncle Woody.
Okay.
He's still in the industry. My father retired. My uncle still, he works for Alliance. And my
Okay.
cousin Wesley, he's actually the master of the Odyssey Gold now. So
Cool.
awesome.
for me and him though, when we was kids, we always knew what we wanted to do. When we would talk about it, it was like, what do you want to do? I'm going to be a captain.
Oh, I love
It was
that.
predetermined that we want to follow in our father's footsteps. So, and we did.
That's awesome.
That is
Yep.
awesome. That is. So came into the industry, deckhand 17,
Yep.
then just worked your way up. AB, did you go down into the engine room or did you just go
Yeah.
straight?
So,
Wow.
no AB, just, I guess you would consider as an OS, an unlicensed
Okay.
engineer on a 100-ton boat. So I did the decking, and my father got his own boat, which was the Seawar 6. And then I went down to the engine room as a relief engineer. And then we left, and I went back, and we got hired in at AMT, and I went directly to the engine room, and I worked. We took delivery of the Andy Martin from Bollinger.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, so that was the second new boat we took delivery of. And new boats are a nightmare.
Yeah.
Give me an old boat any day. I'd rather old problems than finding new ones, because you don't never know where the problem is, right? You just got to trial and error it.
Yeah.
And then, so I did that until I was 19. And then I actually left the industry. I call it a sabbatical. So I wanted to know if it was going to be something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I
That's smart.
worked on land for a few months and signed up, went to sea school, passed my captain's license, and credit to Andy Martin, because I called him up and I said, hey, I went and got my captain's license. I'm ready to come back to the industry. And he said, what boat do you want to be on? I got some really great captains. And of course, my hero was my father. And I said, I think my father's the best captain I ever worked with. And that's who I want to train me.
That's
And
awesome. I
moved
love
up to
to
the
hear that.
wheelhouse from there.
Well, that's really cool. So then, and you served, I really, I like your personal history, because then you served as a 100-ton captain for how long?
I'm on my 5th issue.
So 25 years. So
Well,
you,
let's see. No, so I got it at 20. I turned 20 when I actually got my license from, let's see, I
okay.
look at so yeah, I turned 20 when I got my license. I just had to look up at my first certificate because I got it on the wall behind the camera. My first license.
Nice.
Uh, so I'm 2 years into my 5th issue,
Okay. So yeah,
22 years.
22 years. And then after that time, you then said, you know what? I'm going to go and upgrade my license and get a
Yep.
bigger license.
Yep.
Why'd you make that decision? Because that's kind of interesting. You usually either stay 100-ton your whole career or immediately start that upgrade process. What talk about that?
So I always push people to go beyond where they start. I tell
Love
everybody,
that.
look, I don't want you on the boat 5 years from now with me. You need to be excelling past me or going somewhere else or starting your own journey. And so I worked with my father for almost 10 years, and it wasn't really an easy 10 years. But kudos to him, it made me who I am. It wasn't easy on me. So anybody that's sitting there thinking, oh, he worked with his father, he had it easy. My father is not that guy.
Hey, I'm sure my father's listening to this podcast, and I'm sure he will agree that he and I could not work together on
I
boats.
think that parents are or family members are harder on their
Of
family members
course.
because you expect more. I mean, Aaron's definitely hard on me here at work.
And I'm hard on my
Well,
kids.
you can
Angel,
remove the
you work
filter
But
a
I
lot
think
of
that's
times too,
good.
though, right?
I'm
Angel,
sorry. What
Angel's
was that?
dad sails. Angel, could you sail with your dad?
Um, Probably not. Even when I call him and he's at work, like he doesn't even say anything. He's just like talks in the background because it's like he can't talk while he's at work. So like even then he's like very stringent. So no, I could not work with him.
All right,
So,
so that makes sense. So you worked 10 years on the boat with your dad. Now, sorry, continue.
all right. So, Roger Brown was the president of the company at that time. And we used to have captain meetings in Houma annually. So I was at a captain meeting and I approached him. I said, kind of getting complacent, bored. I would call it complacent, but a lot of people would just say he was bored and ready for another challenge. And I said, I'd just like to go to a different boat, a new challenge. And he said, "You sure about that?" And he approached me prior to that, but I turned him down on it. I told him once I felt like I learned everything I could from my father, I'd be ready to move on. And I just felt like that's where it was in my life, And I was actually supposed to go to the Odyssey Gold, I think it was. And then I got a call. So I got good news and bad news. I said, okay, well, what's the bad news? They said, well, you got 2 more weeks to work. I said, what's the good news? He said, we're going to give you your own boat. And I was like, all right, that's a new challenge, right? So I was excited
Yeah.
about that. And that was the Odyssey Force was my first master. So,
Oh, cool.
yep. And then I think that was in 2010. And I was on there for 4
Okay.
or 5 years. And then we went through the slowdown period. Eventually got moved to the Odyssey Defender and worked there since 2016. And it's just another instance of where I feel like I'm getting complacent, ready for a new challenge, need to try something different. And for me, that was just a natural progression of things. Move up, move around, and see what the other world's like.
I love that. And I love that attitude. And I love that just that mentorship as well, that you're not only pushing yourself, but you're pushing your crewmates and people that serve under you that, go
I
far.
love that too.
Yeah, that's
And we've
really
heard so many of the guys say, well, I just had such a great mentor. And he said, I don't want you to, and that pushed me. So hearing you be the one to say that is a whole nother aspect that's really cool to hear.
I
Because
love that.
a lot of the guys that we've had have had people like you, and it really makes a difference.
Yeah. So now you're upgrading, you have your 200.
Yep.
And, talk to me about that because we've been spending a lot of time and, we just had an OMSA conference where we were talking and, we had John Fontenot on the panel talking about what's wrong with mariner education and mariner training and mariner certification. And I say those as all three different things because they are three different things, but they get
Right.
lumped together too many times into one. Talk to me about the process of unlicensed, uncredentialed, starting, and then getting 100-ton captain's license,
Yep.
and then the newer modern process, which is better, which is worse,
So,
positive. Talk to me
Oh.
about that.
so prior to 2016, U.S. Coast Guard used to publish all the question pools for all the tests that you would take. Well, in 2016, they called it question brain rot, from what I've read, and stopped publishing the questions. But the issue is so if you look at a COI, you have a GRT rating, which is a gross registered tonnage, and then you have a GT rating, which is international tonnage convention gross tonnage. There's two different measurements. So one's a national rating, and the other one's an international rating. We seeing is a lot of the national ratings drop off the COI, and just being rated up underneath international tonnage.
Yeah.
So so the CFRs and the STCW doesn't in line on requirements in a way. So you have a bunch of policy letters you have to read through to see exactly what you need. And the one I always point to is OICW assessment form, right? So when you download the assessment form, I think it's like 64 pages, but the assessment's only 8 pages long, but it's the rest of it's policy letter and policy changes to
Yeah.
get to the assessment. Who's going to read 30 pages of policy letters to find out what you need and don't need
It
and where
is
it's going?
I call it the worst choose your own adventure novel ever.
Yeah.
I mean, we have something, there are literally dozens of different licenses you can have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have literally hundreds of credentials layered on top of that.
Right.
So you have, it's almost an infinitesimal amount of different licenses that you can have, because you can have one of those dozens of different licenses and then put all of those credentials on top of them. It's, how can you even decide, like, okay, I want to go the next step up on the ladder. What is the next step? It's, who knows? Because it's just, they have made this so complex and so convoluted. And like you say, yeah, then to take an 8-page assessment, you have to read 60 pages of instructions about who should be taking this assessment. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, I know. See, I like the STCW way of doing it. If you was doing a STCW step, you could take the classes, or you could just get your 100-ton and do the 200-ton.
Yep.
And then you get your 500 GT. Then you'll move up to a 500 GT, officer in charge of navigational watch. Then you can move up to a master license, which is way they word it is 500 GT, less than 3,000 GT. And then the next step up would be a 3,000 GT or more, which would essentially is unlimited on the STCW side. And the reason why I like that process, I know it costs more money because of the certification, but personally, I feel like you're getting a better education doing it if you go into the right schools, so STCW still covers everything the 1,600 gross ton would require you to have, all the way down to the coal rigs. You got to take a test on that. And while we got to test on coal rigs so many times for the same, you're doing the job. If you got 100-ton, you test out on coal rigs. You get a 1,600-ton or a 500-ton, test out on the coal rigs. If you go to Master Unlimited, test out on the coal rigs again. So every step, you're doing the same test. And the information doesn't change. It's just the same question bank. I know we're supposed to know it, but I recognized myself a long time ago that I get testing anxiety. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but you can be confident. And as soon as you sit down to take that test, you get a little anxiety and you start questioning yourself. And I probably failed more tests over that than I've passed. So I know I spent a lot of prep time to try to eliminate the anxiety of it. And I think that holds a lot of people back too, because people don't want to do the whole process over again.
Yeah.
And look, I'm one of the people that I totally believe skill fade is a real thing, and that you have to protect against skill fade. So there are some things you have to test multiple times to make sure. But if you're working your way up and you're having to take that same assessment every time when it's the same thing, that's not preventing skill fade. That's just red tape. And
exactly.
Yeah. So, these are the kinds of things that hold people back. And, I want to go back to what you say, because there is a big debate right now, I think, in the kind of the red tape reduction, mariner, how we promote the maritime industry world. And there is, I think, a debate on STCW or national license. So I like your perspective on STCW because it's clean. It's easy. There's one standard, works everywhere. But what I would say is too many of the STCW activities could be onboard training. And instead, and that's the way a lot of flag states around the world have done them.
Yes.
U.S. Coast Guard has decided, oh no, that needs to be a classroom course. Can you talk to that?
I got a good example of one. Electronic navigation. It's your depth finder, the AIS, all the equipment any mariner would use, all the way down to a guy on a center console. has
Uh-huh.
familiarization with GPS. So why are we requiring a course for electronic navigation for the basic navigation equipment?
Yes.
It doesn't make sense.
Exactly. That's a great one. You know, that's it's a 4-day course, I think, or something like that.
I have not looked into it.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
it's a
figure out
pretty
if I
big
can get
course.
signed off on it, and
Yeah.
hopefully I can, because it's
Yeah.
just more money.
If you know the material and you can prove you know the material, you should be able to test out and not have to spend the money, spend the time away from your family to go do that. So,
Or you just get a captain, an officer
mhm.
of just to sign off to evaluate you. Because when you do now there is certain things you do like a RFP&W, you have to be signed off by an
Right.
officer. OMSA, you still have to be signed off. So those guys, they're vouching for you and putting their credential numbers down for you to get signed off on it. So are we trusting our officers that the Coast Guards are putting in these positions, or are we not trusting them?
Well,
Well,
let's
that's what I was just about to say too, is don't y'all do more, you learn more on the vessel doing the work than you
yes.
would in a
Yep.
classroom or taking the test, which is something you said that when you first started, there were no training classes. You
Nope.
learn while you're on the vessel. Like, I think that I don't understand why more people aren't doing, like, why aren't we pushing that more? I just don't get it.
Yeah. Well, how about I got another great example. How about the Coast Guard requirement on onboard assessors that
Mm.
forever the Coast Guard has said, you have a company, petition the Coast Guard and say, hey, this guy is going to be signing off people. He works with these people on a daily basis. He puts his or her life in their hands. He's going to sign off on their competency and say if they're competent or not. That has worked, again, forever. Then, after 2017, the Coast Guard says, well, that system doesn't work anymore. Now you have to go take a class in onboard assessing if you want to be an onboard assessor.
Yeah.
As if teaching a test is some like unique skill that you need, that's a great. So now it's another course. Now they keep delaying that requirement, but eventually they're going to have to fish or cut bait. And
Yep.
they can't just keep delaying, giving 2-year extensions forever.
No, I think right now it's up to 2028 for an
Yeah.
officer to sign off on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so. There you can do it at two solutions, right? So the way it works now, you apply the test for your national license, and then you go to class, which isn't cheap. A prep class for your national
Mhm.
license for anything above 100 ton. Some classes like some is $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
And it's not even a curriculum based, right? Or you go somewhere, it's like MPT, it might be 20 days for a class.
Mm-hmm.
But so I just went and did search and rescue. And I was in class with all graduates from like A&M, Cal Poly, Maritime, Mass.
Yeah.
And I was talking to them guys, and one of the guys graduated at last year at 23, but he was $185,000 in debt. Now, I agree you come out with a degree, but what about the guys that's not worried about the degree and only worried about the license requirement in order to work in the maritime industry? That's where the house piper,
Yeah.
the fruit of the house piper is. You take a cadet that's only been in classroom where they do C terms.
Mm-hmm.
But you can take a hose piper that's worked from the deck, the engine room to the bridge. He can correlate every aspect of that boat and talk to everybody on board, all the way from the chief engineer to the AB to the OS, and understand what they're trying to relay to you because you got firsthand experience with it. So
Yeah.
the communication, I believe, I'm not knocking those guys or saying, hey,
No.
you wasted a lot of money. I understand why they did it because it's easier to do it up front and you come out with the license.
It is.
I
It's
get it.
easier. It can be less time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily less time because there's equally, like you said, because so you spend less time on the front end to get the piece of paper, but having the piece of paper and having the knowledge are two separate things. So, I completely understand it can be less time, and there's totally a place for academy grads. Definitely completely agree, and was, talking with Colonel Fossum, actually last night, with Texas A&M Maritime, and they do a great job. And there's a great place for that school. But even he and I were agreeing, there's also a great place for the hosepipe. And I think too few people understand that. And, you look at even the MARAD reports, and they don't even account for 100-ton license holders
Right.
as mariners, because they're like, oh, well, those people just must be, center console or fishermen or something like that. And no, they're running our national security assets. They are interacting with our domestic fuel sources. So, can you talk about that, about what a 100-ton captain does?
Oh man, we do everything. So the other thing that kind of pushed me towards upgrading, right? I kind of feel like it's more of a young man's game than it is when you start getting older. You start getting a little sore, and anybody out there, you know, everybody knows that. So we work in the engine room, we work on deck. I needle gun and grind with my guys. I paint with my guys. There's not an aspect of the boat you don't touch. There's no uh wheelhouse captain, as I would call it, right?
Yeah.
You everywheres. And then when you're at the shipyard, you everywheres with the guys. There's no just sitting around for us. We're working with the third party techs. We're there looking over the shoulders, learning just like everybody else is. 'Cause when you 100 miles offshore and something breaks, you need to know and really be able to troubleshoot and have basic understanding of everything you're doing to be able to cobble together something to get you back in or finish the job or patch it for a few days until you get everything correctly fixed. And I can't tell you how many times I was woke up, and it's even kind of like a running joke. My guys would be like, "Hey, you go wake him up." No, you go wake him up. Because sometimes when you get woke up, you're not going to be in the best of mood. And so you're running downstairs, and you all sleepy eyed, and you're like, "Oh man, how come y'all didn't troubleshoot this?" Or why didn't you do this or do that? But at the end of the day, I don't mind it. As part of it, and for me, and it's a lot of times it's a teaching opportunity. You know what I mean? I'll say, hey, we all learned something. If we don't know it, we're going to figure it out together, and that's the way we
I
go
love that
about
mindset.
it.
Me too. And Aaron, if he's saying he's too old to do that job, then you definitely didn't do that job.
I'm not saying I'm too old for it. I'm just saying it's a younger
I know.
man's
I said
game.
you said it's a younger man's game. I'm saying if you're saying that, it's definitely too old for Aaron.
Yeah. She's
It's
just
another dig on how old Aaron is. If you added all our ages, that would be his age.
I don't know.
That is not.
I don't know. I don't know if you can add my age in there.
Not me. I'm young.
But
Just keep telling yourself that.
But I appreciate your willingness to say, or your not willingness, your wanting to be involved in everything and teach and do it, because that just shows good leadership and a true captain.
Yeah.
And again,
I wasn't
that goes
always
a long
a good leader, though. I will admit that. So whenever I got my license, I was 20. And you're working with everybody twice your age sometimes, I rarely had somebody that was 20 years old on the boat working with me. So you got a guy that's, 40 years old, been 20 years in the industry, and he's looking at a 20-year-old captain. He's like, what does he know? He just got his license and everything. So I would say I was a very poor leader at 20, because I just couldn't really communicate with those guys. It was a big learning curve. It got easier in my 30s.
That's normal.
Nah,
I think if we talk to all captains at that age, they'd probably say the same thing. I mean, especially like you said, you've got someone 20 years older than you, like questioning you, and you're like, I know I can do this, but how do I communicate that to them?
That's always, I think that's in any field, that's a difficult place to be. And I think we've all been in that place, and that's interesting. So, Captain, then how did you make yourself into a good leader? What did you do to make yourself into a good leader?
Being mindful of others. I think today I'm a better leader than I was at any point in my time. Some guys might disagree with it, and everybody's got their own opinion. So the biggest trap I think for anybody is falling into favoritism. And
Mhm.
so managerial and leadership skills really goes in depth on favoritism, right? And I really enjoyed that class. I think everybody in the marine industry should take that class. It's just one of
Interesting.
those classes that kind of really opens up your eyes. And if you're honest with yourself, you can say, "Oh yeah, I've been there and I've done it," you know? And I think
Mhm.
you got to be even with everybody. And sometimes, people aren't used to being treated equally and fairly, and it's kind of a trap, We don't often reflect on ourselves what other people see. So you got
I
to be
think that
open-minded about the feedback that you're getting.
I think that's a very fair statement and a very wise and a statement that I think it takes a lot of foresight and a lot of ability to see that. Not only see that just as a general concept, but to see that, to see your own blind spot there. I really like that. And I appreciate that. And I think it just is a testament to the great people that are in this industry that you're able to do that. So that's really good.
I think
So,
they call that external self-awareness.
whoa, look at this.
Hey,
I
With
yeah.
know. Toot
Well,
toot
we
my
get some
shell.
education. See, that's what I'm talking about right there.
Seriously.
I thank you for that's
I
good to
did
know.
I did a lot of research into mindfulness back in my day.
Oh, I
Uh,
need to be more mindful.
Yeah.
I try. I
So
also
can
think
you
that being in the maritime industry as a whole, I try and explain it to people. It's because I've worked in private equity and I've worked inland and now offshore for the past
Mhm.
13 years. There is nothing like the maritime industry, especially the offshore. It is legit like a it is so everyone is so bonded and that's why everyone is so friendly and so like wanting to help people. So I can see how those boundaries of playing favoritism could be blurred, and to understand that really is important. I can see all that.
so I would tell people my greatest success stories wasn't even I was unaware of it at the time. The people that I was helping was unaware of it at the time. But I've had several instances years later. I've get call from somebody that say, "Hey man, I just want to thank you for everything you taught me. I know I wasn't listening at the time, or was butting heads, but it really did help me." So you
That's
just
good.
never know where it's
I
going to lead
know.
to. You know what I mean? The
That's
the the guy
awesome.
you might be having the hardest time with might at some point reflect on it and say, "You know what? It helped." And I think that's my biggest achievement. And then when I talk about people, I talk about instances, I always bring those guys up, because for me, if that's the greatest satisfaction I've ever had out of my career.
That's
That's
awesome. That's
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
I love that. Um, so I think we talk a lot about this podcast about because look, a lot of this we started this to highlight the great stories and the great personalities and the great professionals that are in our industry, and to kind of show what a great life this is. But I think a lot of people get worried about the away from home time. So, can you talk about that work-life balance? Because it is different. And, look, we've had, we have on our videos, we have John Fontenot talking about how, you're actually home more than a 9 to 5er, when you actually count hours at home in this career. So, but no one hears that. They don't. We
Uh,
can have John on the video a million times, still no one's hearing that. So can you talk about the work-life balance in your life?
well, I guess it would be all about perspective, right? So if you're in the industry, uh, I be honest with you, nobody feels like they get enough time home. You know what I mean? And I tell people the most valuable time to a mariner is their time home. So those
Mhm.
late crew changes or early crew changes, there's a big impact on us. Nobody likes them.
Yeah.
So it makes that is just another level of difficulty to the home work life balance. We all, as we sign up for it, we're aware of it. We're aware of the missed holidays, the birthdays, the special occasions. We know when we sign on that dotted line, that's what we signing up for. But I think we do get some better quality time when we are home. It's maybe not as if both parents in the household are working, but we try our best, and it takes a lot. And, for the wives out there, the husbands, for the women that's working in the industry, it takes a really strong person at home to be able to make it all work. Because I guess, uh, anybody that's in the military, I guess they could relate to it, because it's just a deployment. For every hitch is a deployment, right? You gone, you isolated, you're away from home, and you living through the digital age of digital connection with phone calls, FaceTime, video calls. It's the same like doing what we're doing right now, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like being in a mariner, being on a vessel and talking to your family members. This would be your normal interaction when you're on the boat. So it's very delicate and very hard at times for people to do it. And you really got to understand what you're signing up for when you join this life. And your partner does too. That's what, if I tell any young mariners that's coming in, is you got to agree upon it, because it impacts both of you. It's going to impact
Yeah.
your spouse more. It's going to impact you. And that's what you really need to be considerate of. And my
It's a very
daughter's doing it now too. She's in a relationship with a tugboater. And I was like, you just went through this with me. You sure you want to do it with me? But she's prepared for it. And I'm glad that they found each other. And I don't worry about them at all, because she went through it and she's ready for it. So good for them.
See, I really like my alone time. So I'm like, this sounds wonderful to me. When Aaron travels so much, I'm like, okay, see you in 3 days.
I mean, y'all spend a lot of time together.
We spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
Justin, I'm happy you mentioned the virtual thing that we're doing now, because you did start in the industry before a lot of the technology was in place. So what was that shift for you? How, the first time you were able to do a video call?
Oh, it took some adjustment, to be honest with you. I think it's got the good and the bad, right? So my time in my early career, I call it blissful ignorance, because when you're at work, so if you're in the industry as long as I have, and I'm going to sound like an old guy saying this, we used to have cell phone rows with calling card vending machines. So when you got to the dock, you walk up there, buy a calling card, call everybody you needed to for 20 minutes, and then you was back to the boat for however long.
Yeah.
And then when you got home, you just picked up life like it never left. But now you have the 24/7 interaction. So you know exactly what you miss and when you're missing it. You get the constant feedback, which is a good thing, because you get to see, like for me, I had 4 daughters, so I get to watch them grow up more. And they always let me know that, hey, you need to come home. They're the constant reminder. And so yeah, it's a positive and a negative. And if you got to be mentally prepared for both of them, because you are at the same time able to keep a better connection, but you at the same time mentally you are more aware of everything you're missing, if that makes sense. And I think it's
I
harder
like.
for young mariners coming in to deal with that.
Is there anything that yeah, there's just some parts of that challenge that we can't get around,
Nope.
and I get that. But are there ways, do you see tricks or tools that those young mariners can do to help with that process, though? What makes that transition easier?
Patience and understanding. It might sound weird, but you're not always going to be able to have them conversations when you want to. You both living a life. Everybody's living a life, and the life doesn't stop when you leave. So you got to have the patience and understanding to allow the people that's on land to keep living their life. You can't. So you don't want to be the burden. You still want to be a part of it, but you just got to realize, now that you got 24-hour access, that you don't really have 24-hour access. So that's where the patience and understanding comes into, because everybody's got stuff still going on. So you can't be bothered when you say, hey, you got time to talk? No, I don't have time to talk right now. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a busy lifestyle that everybody's living.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Actually, I saw a meme one time, and it was that kind of typifies that, and it's just how the oil industry and the offshore industry is based upon waiting, and so mariners can wait with the best of them because we in our industry we spend so much time waiting on this or waiting on that, and sometimes we don't understand that not everyone is like that they don't just have hours to kill waiting. So, but that teaches you that patience too, like you're talking about. So,
So Aaron, wait, real quick. With that logic, does that mean every single driver in New Orleans is a mariner? Because that's how I feel like everyone drives here.
Oh, let me tell you something. Baton Rouge is way worse than New Orleans.
You're right. It is.
It twice.
Nope. 100%. You are totally right. I still have PTSD from living in Baton Rouge when I was in college, and that was so long ago, before Katrina, before everything, and even then the traffic was bad, and it was people going 5 miles an hour just like here. So you're right. Hats off. I apologize. 10 times
so actually, Angèle lives in Baton Rouge.
Yes, she has to do this commute.
She is one of the more even keel people, but she comes into the office sometimes in the morning, and
she's like pissed.
Fire.
Yeah,
I don't understand the slowdown for the bridge. It's a bridge. Why can't everybody drive the speed limit over the bridge?
Yes. Or when they stop where they're coming, I'm like, why? You don't have to stop to go down. Just go. Oh, God, sorry.
I'm
we just opened up a can of worms. Yeah. My apologies. I opened up another can of worms.
Well, Justin, I always ask people this, what, and I like everyone's answers for it, and I don't think there's a right answer, but what is that point where if you get X days in or X months in or X hitches in, that then you're in our industry? And, because I find that point is interesting to know, because if you get someone, I don't think we have a problem getting people into this industry. I think we have a problem, one, advertising that to get, to help people understand what great opportunities are there. But I do think we have a problem keeping great people in this industry. So if we can know that date of how much we have to help someone get over that hump, where do you think that hump is? And if it's not time-based, it's something else. What is that day where if you get 3 hitches in, you're good to go? What's that date, do you think?
I think personally it's about 1 year to 2 years, to be honest with you. I think I don't think you can go. So for a perspective is, if you work in 28 and 14, you only have 4 months home, 8 hitches a year, and that's a whole year. So are 8 months on the boat really long enough to know if this is your industry or not? It just goes by so fast, because when you get on the boat, you're focusing on when you're getting off. So everything in between is just time, you're counting down the days the minute you get on there. So I think 2 years is a realistic point. I think for some guys it's sooner, than some guys it's later, right? I think a lot of people know almost instantly when they get on the boat, hey, this isn't for me,
But, and this is why I like to hear this, and why, because then, what people like John and other professionals that are on the HR side, Priscilla at Hornbeck, because they can take that information then and then figure out, okay, well, then I have to have someone helping and mentoring that person through 2 years. And it's not the first hitch, the first 2 hitches or something like that, because then, if you want to keep that person, you got to have a buddy for them for 2 years. So I like hearing everyone's answers for that, because that's useful knowledge that our industry can take to figure out how we retain great people like yourself.
Well, we got to look at it like this, though. Are you really going to experience all the ups and downs in just a few months? You know what I mean?
No.
So if you do 10 weeks, you only did 2 months on the boat. So it's 2.5 months of the year. It's almost a quarter of the year in just 2 hitches. So you got to really experience the good and the bad to know if you're really going to be in it. You got to really have a negative moment to know, am I going to be able to mentally be able to forge forward, or do I want to? Right? If something bad happens and you're 100 miles offshore, you can't hop off the boat. I mean, if it's an emergency, obviously we'll fly you in or get you
Yeah.
shoreside, but just, not everything calls for that. And that's what you really need to understand. I think the kind of the disconnect for the shore side and boat side. We joke about it as captains, we the guys that's having relationship problems, financial problems, or this problem or that problem. We the guys that hear all that on the vessel, and we're trying to help everybody the best as we can.
Yeah.
And I just had a guy a couple of hitches ago, he was going through some things at home. He was kind of carrying it around on his shoulders. And we just had to stop and had to have a heart to heart. So everybody goes through it on the boat, but you can't let it, translate to how you are on the boat.
Yeah.
So that's the things that everybody needs to experience to know if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life.
I really like that answer, and again, love the mentorship and the just the familial style nature of how this works. And I think there are a lot of people that look for that in their career, and they should be looking at the offshore industry because you can get it here. And I just wish we'd understand that. So then, we've talked about all of this. What keeps you coming back then? What keeps you going to that you keeping in this industry? Why do you keep doing it then?
To be honest with you, I love my job. I've always loved my job. I think that's what pushed me to be the best captain I could be as far as handling the vessels, is the fact that I get paid good money to go offshore and play with 230 foot or however big of a vessel, like it's a toy, right? You get a sport fishing guys, they're trying to get away from the objects, and we're trying to get as close as possible to the object. So it's a different mindset. I like to think of as like cowboys, the last frontier or something like that, because we're out there in the bad weather, not just the good days, but often I guess as I get older, I don't like the bad weather as much either. But when I was in my 20s, I loved it. And I think I like the challenge of it. No day's the same, and I don't understand the mentality where the people shifts from liking their job to not liking it. Because you get captains that's like, man, I don't want, they might complain that they got to go up underneath the platform. I love it. I don't like sitting at the dock. I want to be offshore. I want to be at the rig working. I want to be on DP, or I want to be live boat, and give me the challenge. What we doing today? Throw something my way to help my day go by. That's what keeps driving me.
I like that.
I like working on the boats. I like driving them. I like driving them in port. I like backing into seaport. Everything you could think of where it comes to boat handling, that's my passion. I think everybody has a passion, and I think I do mine really well.
So, and I like that. And I want for our listeners that aren't familiar with Fouchon, and I tell our PR team that runs our Instagram, I'm always like, get more boats in garages. Boats in garages are cool, but tell everyone about what backing into seaport is like. What is that? And then tell everyone about how you do it.
All right. So I guess the Achilles heel of seaports is Seaport 1. I think that's the most dreaded one right now. And Bayou Lafourche.
Well, it's the oldest. It was the first one built, hence why it's 1. It's the smallest.
That's where I cut my teeth out.
Yeah, because vessels hadn't gotten as big then. So, no. But go ahead, go tell.
So I'll focus on Seaport 1, right? Because that's the most difficult one, because you got Bayou Lafourche traffic.
Yeah.
You got the Bayou current that can, if anybody's familiar with Fouchon, can get tremendously strong either coming in or going out. Then you get a south or north wind, and you just backing into a tiny slip and then you got to get in there without tearing the boat up. But that's the main thing. And my father's probably going to kill me, but between him and I, he's the only one that ever damaged one getting into Seaport 1. And, And Roger Brown cut him a lot of slack at the time because he said, of all your career, that's the worst you've ever done. I think I could live with it. But I'll never forget the phone call. He called me. He says, "Oh, I got into the corner and pushed the bulwark in. I feel terrible." I was like, "Well, what did office said?" And he kind of just laughed it off. I was like, "Well, don't worry about it." But those little challenges really pushed me, and that's the reason why I upgraded my license, is just to get another challenge to my life to keep pushing forward.
Well, that
I
is,
do not know how y'all do that. I giggled yesterday because Aaron and I just had this conversation about a friend of ours has a big boat and he backed it into the slip, and I was like, this was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I was giggling yesterday as I have a Jeep and I could not reverse parallel park. I had to drive around the block and find a parking spot that I could just drive into. It was so embarrassing. And I was literally giggling to myself thinking about vessels.
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I mean, I did
Parking
it
is
with
hard.
no stern thruster. No stern. I've done it with one main and only the bow thruster. I've done it with two mains and no bow thruster.
Well, my Jeep has lines to tell you how to reverse and park, and I still can't do it.
So running a boat's like my father expressed it the best I've ever heard it. It's like riding a bicycle. So once you learn to ride the bicycle, you can go down the road, but as you get better at it, you start feeling what you need to do on the bicycle in order to stay upright. So if you was riding in the grass, you'd pedal harder. If you was riding on the road, you won't have to pedal as hard. But as you encounter different environments, you're learning how to ride the bicycle better, and you're always training and learning a new skill set in order to make yourself better. Personally, I never go into a situation thinking, "Oh, I know how to do this." And
Yeah.
I go into the situation, I let the boat tell me what it needs from me in order to get it done.
Y'all are such a wise family. Can I text you for inspiration every once in a while?
Well, and
Because
so
I'm always like, especially when our kids say something like, I don't know, just do it. I don't know why you got to do it, just do it.
no, I mean, my father was a wise captain, and if we've been mariners. My grandfather was a merchant mariner, and then he was a shrimp boat captain, and then my father was a shrimp boat captain before he was in the oil field. And I worked
I,
on shrimp boats before I went to the oil field. So it's uh, so my family actually dates back to 1718 on the Gulf Coast. It's
oh,
traceable.
wow.
Wow.
So we've been on the water all our lives. We've
And you're just
depended
now
on it.
telling us all this?
Oh, well, I'm like a big, deep book. Sometimes you just scratch the surface and then
Seriously.
you flip through it.
That's
Uh,
so cool.
yeah.
Well,
So,
I love
so
that. And I love all the experiences you've had. What if you have one experience to just that kind of typifies your career, what would you say it is? What's the thing that when you're going to sleep, you think back on, or really think, what's that one experience that you love about this industry that's the best thing?
I think for me, I can't pinpoint a single industry. I think it's just the experience itself. It, I would hate to 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 take credit away from another experience to give it all to one experience. I think whenever I look back, for me, the biggest impact from my experience was just the people. It wasn't really the jobs. I think through my whole industry, I think every one of them almost left a mark on me. I think,
Hmm.
20 something years of doing it. And I look back and I think of all the names. A lot of the guys I still remember the names of. Some of them are passed away now and gone, or I might have lost contact with them, but they've all, for the people that I remember the most, all left the impact on me. And for me, that was the greatest experience of the industry. And one day when I'm sitting back, even now I do it on the boat, I get a 20-year-old and I get to say, back in my day when I first started, this is the way we used to do it. You guys have never experienced that. Like
Yeah.
whenever I started drilling, we used to tie it with a 6-inch line on the
Hmm.
stern bits. I can remember standing in chest deep of water tying up. You're not going to experience that no more. Safety wouldn't allow it to be too rough, but back then it was kind of like, well, it's the way it was always done attitude. And if we did it, we did it safely, which might not be safely, but we felt it was safe at that time. It, the direction in that industry shifted too. So
we haven't displaced the risk. We have moved the risk to different areas.
yeah,
The risk is still the risk. It's just we've managed it. We've mitigated. We have the systems to deal with it, but the risk is still there. We've just moved it around.
Well, you'll never totally be free of the risk, right? So my mantra is there's always a safe way to do it. It just depends on how bad you want to do it, right? I've been in situations where I flat out refuse. You have to,
Yeah.
and as I get older, I'm more self-aware of the risk. My 20-year-old me looking back was gun ho, we can do it. Do you guys want to do it? Let's do it. Especially when I was 18, 19-year-olds on deck, I felt like I was bulletproof. Be honest about it. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Getting amped up,
And I think that's where a lot of the tools we've developed in the industry are good because one, they've given everyone the understanding that they have the right to say no.
Yeah.
But two, they've also ensured that we have systems like ASOGs that make sure that 20-year-olds are not making the call just because they are bulletproof, which I completely understand. And probably you and I are more susceptible to that than the other two people on this call, I would guess.
Well, so the way I do it now, though, is a lot of times I let my guys make the call. I'll call her. They'll call me and say, hey, we need this off the boat. And I'll call my guys up to the bridge and say, hey, they need this off the boat. Do you feel like we can do this safely? And, I don't have as many 20-year-olds on the boat no more. So everybody's more senior and experienced. And they'll say, yeah, or they'll say, it's really rough. You can see that they're hesitant in their eyes. And I'll just say, hey, it's too rough. Can we wait till it calms down? You have to make the judgment call, but I think it's a team effort at the end of the day. I'm not on the back deck.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be talking for them guys.
That's a great attitude. I love that. Well, you've been very generous with your time here, Captain. So, just is there anything you want people, I want to give you the last word. What do you want people to take away from this episode today?
I want people to understand that I tell everybody the oil field, especially on the boats, it's what you put into it. The more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. The less you put into it, the less you get out of it. So if you put everything you can into it, it'll treat you well. If you put nothing into it, it's not going to treat you as well. So I want guys to the oil field is one of the most rewarding careers you can have for the amount of effort you put into it. And I understand that a lot of guys might not get the praise. I was bad at praising people at one time. I get it. It wasn't it. When I come up, you didn't get a lot of praises. We used to say, if they're not saying anything to you, you're doing it right.
Good.
So, but just know that it doesn't go unnoticed, even when you're not getting the praises when you think you deserve them. Everybody's watching you all the time.
Well, Captain, let me praise you then. You are an exemplary member of our industry, and you're one of the people that make our industry work. And it's not just me saying that, when we talked to your company and I said, hey, I think we should have Captain Taylor on here. I'm really liking what he's saying online. They immediately said, oh yeah, he's one of our best. So, you're a great member of this industry. You're one of the people that make this industry a great industry. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and telling us a little bit about yourself, because it's fascinating and I love to hear it. So thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you again and take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That wraps up another episode of Maritime in America. We're proud to highlight the voices and stories that keep the American offshore industry strong. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. And remember, the course ahead is shaped by those who step up in steering. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your crew. Tune in every Friday for your offshore briefing, and don't miss our next full episode, dropping soon with a very special guest's mariner's perspective. Catch you next time.